Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to Quilly18 Ranks, the top 100 ranked games from PC Gamer in 2023. Gaming magazines are always doing these sorts of things where they rank the top 100 games of all times. This is the 2023 edition for PC Gamer, and we're going to go through and see if we agree and disagree with some of the things they have picked. What I really appreciate about this article, which by the way I will make sure to link down below, is that they have a full explanation about the scoring system. Basically, they asked everyone who works for PC Gamer to nominate some games and then go through and vote the games on the criteria of quality, importance, hotness, and playability. And then those scores were all averaged out by how many people voted in total to give us an average score for all of those things, which is kind of a really interesting way to do it. So it wasn't one person trying to make a list or a group of people trying to make a list. It was collectively trying to score some things, which did lead to some interesting and unexpected outcomes, which I think is very, very, very cool. The biggest biggest number in their voting was the quality meter, which is 60% of the score. And then we had 15% from importance, hotness, which is, just how exciting it is, and then playability, which is down to only 10%, which I think is one of the reasons maybe for some of the interesting high ranking values in this, because there are some pretty crunchy games out there based on that might not necessarily work for everyone, that I think are very good. There's also this ability for people to nominate some extra votes. They also talk about what's the deal with games that have multiple games in their series and how we add them or not, which is all worthwhile considering in here. So and then of course they've got a big special mention for Baldur's Gate 3, which came out way too late for their voting. Apparently their voting was done in July, so that was before BG3 actually came out. I would strongly suspect, honestly, that this would well deserve a number one spot for a wide variety of reasons. Also, Fraser Brown, who's the editor who gave Baldur's Gate 3 a 97% score, one of the highest ever. I know Fraser. I've met them multiple times at a lot of press events. I think they're extremely smart, and I think this is a well-deserved score by someone whose opinion I respect highly. So let's go. Starting from number 100, Football Manager. So this actually did get the promotion boost over here. So this wouldn't have had a high enough score to make it in the list. But as explained in their things, they did have one of their editors make a pitch for including in here. So it did get snuck into the top 100. And I think it's fair. The thing is, I think Football Manager is phenomenal for what it does, but it's not going to be a game for everyone. So you can see here, like, somewhat lower in the playability and quality. Interestingly enough, the hotness is rated highly. I would have put more emphasis possibly on the importance of the game, for example. So Football Manager, of course, just strategy, management of a foot soccer ball team, highly detailed, really fantastic. I love the Football Manager series so much. Then we got a number 99, Diablo 4, which again had to be boosted to get in here, and I think that's kind of fair. You can see that it's like hotness is quite high, and playability, sure, ease of playability is quite high, but quality a little on the lower side. And yeah, I would argue that definitely that the importance of Diablo 4 might not be that high, based on the fact that I'm not sure it's a very good game at release. I'm hoping it does continue to get some more love, because I love action RPGs, but I stopped playing Diablo 4 almost instantly after it came out. It just, yeah, I don't know. Can't disagree that it belongs on the list, but maybe quite low. Hollow Knight over here, which I have not played. This is one of the things about this list that I like. I'm gonna try to use this as a guide for more games I've got to make sure to get around to. Destiny 2 at 97. I haven't played. Death Stranding I have played, and I think it's probably an exceptional game, but man, oh man, I could not keep playing it. It was just, it wasn't my vibe. Teardown's interesting. I don't know if I've even heard about it before this, but I think it is a demolition simulation game, which sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. And I'm going to have to give that one a try. Marvel's Midnight Suns is a cool turn-based tactics game with some sort of card play featuring a lot of Marvel characters. I have dabbled with it. I did a sponsored video for it. And I suspect, I do feel like it was a pretty strong game overall. Again, not God tier, doesn't deserve necessarily to be highly placed in the top 100, but I thought it was very solid. Nice to see it again over here. Power Wash Simulator. So there you go. You have Marvel's Midnight Suns ranked one level below Power Wash Simulator. The Midnight Suns also had to be promoted to be brought in here, so it was likely below the top 100 list. And then, yeah, just one of the editors made a case for why it should probably deserve a little bit higher placement, and they did that. Power Wash Simulator in here just on the pure merits of its votes. Love to see it. Dragon Age Origin. 92 rating for this does make me kind of sad. Now, to be honest, while this is, a fantastic CRPG, no doubt about it, phenomenal, and when it came out, it was like earth-shattering. It was fantastic. Trying to go back and play it, it does definitely suffer from being a kind of a dated game at this point. Even though it's actually not that old. At 2009, some of the UI, some of the visuals, it can feel a little bit on the clunky side. There's also some sort of outstanding bugs and things like that with memory management that is still present, and even with mods, it can be a little tricky to fix. So I can't be mad that it's so low, but I am disappointed that it's so low. But I'm only disappointed in itself. I still think it is worth playing if you're into CRPGs, because I do think Dragon Age Origins was fantastic. But yeah, and maybe it's also suffering from a slightly lower playability score because it is a little crunchy and hard to get into. Perhaps that's the issue. But yeah, I'm a little surprised. It's rough around the edges, sure, but I think I would have personally placed this higher, but I have, a bias and an interest in that sort of thing. I haven't played Amnesia the Bunker. I've played a couple of the Amnesia games. They're terrifying and great. Don't know about this one in particular. Slay the Spire. This is a game I still constantly play. Part of me is like, again, personally, I would rate it higher because it's a game I like a lot, and I think it does what it does very well, but I understand that it's not necessarily a game for everyone necessarily. So it's very low hotness rating over here. It's not something that people talk about a lot, but of course, it was also, released a little while ago. I think this is also, the full release. I think it was early access for a long time before that. This is a deck building card game that is absolutely wonderful, and one of the things I have spent so many hours into. Really think Slay the Spire is great. Celeste I've only watched in speedruns, so I can't really say anything about it. Don't know much about it. At 88, we've got Fallout 2. So this is our first Fallout that we've seen on this list, and either it could be the only Fallout on this list. I don't know. There could be multiple Fallouts on this list, and Fallout 2 is the lowest on the list. There could be some that didn't make it, or maybe all the Fallouts are here, and we're going to see them later on. It is interesting. I think a lot of people talk about Fallout 2 with a tremendous amount of love. It is older, so hotness rating kind of low. Playability, again, I think older CRPGs are going to consistently see this lower playability rating here because, they are crunchy, and you need to maybe read an extensive manual to figure out what's going on. Very high score on quality and importance, which I definitely agree with. Guild Wars 2. So the Guild War games are great, actually, sort of MMOs with some interesting philosophy that runs counter to some of the things that you see in World of Warcraft. It's nice to see an MMO on the list, and I think Guild Wars 2 is absolutely excellent. No complaints about seeing it there. Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. And honestly, I kind of wish its importance rating was a little bit higher because we've already seen a few here. If we go back, so Fallout 2, you can see its important rating of 8.3, which I think is fair. Honestly, to me, Alpha Centauri, I'd put it up a little bit higher. Again, I think suffers from low playability in that it's a crunchy, complex game, and low hotness because, that's what happens when we're talking about a game that's 25 years old at this point. You see, Fraser Brown, who I mentioned earlier, gave a promotion to it, so maybe Alpha Centauri wouldn't have been on the list, or maybe just needed a bit of a boost to be a little bit higher on here. Tremendously influential game, still absolutely quotable to this day. Really, really strong game. I can't blame it for not being higher when you're, if you're judging Alpha Centauri for what it was when it came out, obviously you'd probably put it in a top 10. But if you're judging Alpha Centauri in terms of games that you would play today compared to all other games playing today, the fact that a 25-year-old game is in the top 100 at all is pretty impressive. And mostly just probably held down by just playability and the fact that not a lot of people talk about it. And, strategy games can do that. Pizza Tower I know nothing about. Visually interesting. Hard thing to make a 2D platformer feel fresh in the year of 2023. Oh, so it just came out. Tour de Pizza did it. Pizza Tower elevates level. Huh. I might have to go and check this thing out. EVE Online, baby. Hey, there you go. We got an MMO with a completely different twist. It is not a fancy MMO. It's one about blasting spaceships. It's the sort of thing that people can spend tens of thousands of hours in and still be discovering new things and having more fun. We've covered on our channel a lot, sometimes through sponsored content, sometimes through not. Really fantastic game. Definitely deserves to be on the top 100. I'm surprised the playability meter is so high on this one. Compared to, some of the other crunchy things that we have seen, because it's certainly got some crunch factor in here. So I'm surprised about that. In fact, I might argue that maybe slightly lower playability, slightly higher quality would be a more fair assessment, but maybe its pace at 84 is where it should be anyway. Doom 2016. So there's I think based on some comments I saw in the introduction, I think that Doom is going to appear maybe more than once on this title. Doom continues to be excellent. They know their niche, they know what kind of game they're supposed to be, and they just really excel in that particular area. I think all the games have been super, super strong in that. Inscription I have, and unfortunately I've never gotten around to playing it. in here. Oh, this one actually got a negative. It got a demotion score. So Jody McGregor here made an argument that maybe this wasn't quite as deserving as its final score indicated, knocked it down just a tiny little bit, which is interesting to see. But yeah, I haven't personally spent a lot of time playing this, so I can't weigh it in. But it is a card game. I love my card games, and it's not something I have to do more. Rainbow Six Siege from 2015 coming in at rank 81. Phasmophobia, baby. Yeah, 2020 early access, technically still in early access. It is something that I have played with my buddies, my Tuesday night multiplayer session. This is the one that come up. Really excellent game. Currently undergoing a massive revamp in terms of many of its mechanics. So it would be interesting to see where this would be on the list, say, a year from now, once all those come in. I mean, has been good since its release and just keeps being refreshed constantly through updates that keep the game very interesting. It is a game where up to you and up to 3 other friends are going into a haunted house to try to discover what the ghost is, identify the ghost, find some evidence of the ghost, make some money, use various equipment, and try not to get killed by the ghost. Any fans of Supernatural out there, in particular the ghost facers from Supernatural, I think this would be a 100% your vibe. Great game. You can play it solo, but definitely best with friends. Final Fantasy 12, The Zodiac Age. I think there's going to be more than one Final Fantasies on here. Dusk, I have not played. I have not played at all. Don't know anything about it. Yeah, dragged to nostalgia for 90s FPS. I was gonna say the pixels in there. Tactics Ogre Reborn. Some of these I barely heard of at all. This is one of those, which is a darn shame, but there's too many games out there. At 76, Stalker, Call of Pripyat. Lots of Stalker games. Great vibes for like first-person shooters, but these have more survival elements. Never has an open world FPS made me feel more like the fragile, frightened human being I am in real life. Grand Theft Auto 5! Coming in at number 75. I'll be interested to see if there's more than one Grand Theft Auto on this list and where they're ranked. Personally, for me, Vice City is my favorite. I mean, I'm not going to say that it stands up today, right? It's certainly very dated compared to Grand Theft Auto 5, for example. But Vice City, the vibe that it captured to me was just perfect. The music, too, like top notch. It helps that, I mean, I was born in 79, but basically that means you're a child of the 80s, right? They've got that influence, that history there, and Vice City really hits so many of those. Citizen Sleeper, number 74. Project Zomboid at 73. Fantastic roguelike survival game with some... I haven't played that much of the multiplayer, which keeps getting revamped, so eager to take a look at that. But, I mean, this is a stupendously good game. That's definitely worth trying for anyone who likes crafting, survival, roguelike kind of vibes. Really, really quite good. Battletech. Okay, baby. This game, assuming this is the Battletech, 2018, by Harebrained Scheme, I absolutely adore this game. This is one of my favorite games to have come out in the last decade. I've put so many hours into this. There's some great modding behind it as well to add a lot of lifestyle. I mean, I've been a fan of the Battletech franchise for a long time, since my very early teens. And I just told you what year I was born in, so that tells you that I have been a fan of Battletech for a really long time. And for me, the Battletech game released by Harebrained Schemes was the best implementation of the actual tactical side of it. I also have a soft spot for the Mech Warrior 4 in terms of like the sort of first-person mech piloting vibe, but from the strategic side, the equipment, the rebuilding, the organizing, the flying your dropship around the galaxy, Battletech really hit high on that. And I'm really hoping, and I know Battletech has been in like licensing hell for like decades, I'm really hoping that maybe we can see a Battletech 2 at some point because it was so excellent. I really adored it. Risk of Rain 2 coming in at number 71. Left 4 Dead 2 coming in at 70. I think I suspect only Left 4 Dead 2 is on here, not Left 4 Dead 1. They probably just merged the two together. And to be fair, Left 4 Dead 2 can have all the content for Left 4 Dead 1. I mean, just a wonderful game that still really holds up today. Visually, story, voice acting, gameplay still feels really, really tight. Super high quality and importance value. I mean, this is like peak sort of Valve stuff, right? When they were still making games and not just making money from the Steam store. Really good. Yeah, its lowest thing is just hotness because it's been around for a while. Forza Horizon 5. The Forza series are always fun. Now, there's the Forza, which is just sort of the pure racing, and the Forza Horizon, which is sort of open world with a little bit more wackiness. I first started playing it with Forza... Well, really, Forza 4 was the first one I really spent a lot of time with. That was the one that was based in basically like Northern England / Scotland, assuming I'm getting numbers right. And then Forza Horizon 5 is in Mexico, and 3 was in Australia, right? Think I'm getting those correct, and I've played all 3 of those, and they are just a lot of crazy fun. Especially if you jump on like online mode, and there's even multiplayer online fun. It's great. It's not a serious racing game exactly, but it's a great fun racing game. Valheim coming in at number 68, Alien Isolation at 67. Man, I tried to play this game, but you people who watch this channel know I am bad at stealth. Therefore, Alien Isolation was not my jam. I can appreciate it and truly believe it is a wonderful, very strong game. You can see here score-wise, the only thing holding it back is the hotness value by the fact that it has been out for some time now and people don't really talk about it or thinking about it the same way. Really good game, but not for me. Papers, Please. Oh my god, everyone was talking about this when it originally came out, for sure. You can see its scores are still super high everywhere other than hotness. A little indie game about a very simple border checkpoint operation with some interesting gameplay mechanics and then some interesting decisions that you had to make, ethical decisions. Shadowrun Dragonfall. So a handful of these Dragonfall games were released by, I believe the Harebrained Schemes, again, was the developer for it. As you can see here, Paradox Interactive as a publisher. Shadowrun is a tabletop RPG from way back in the day. Then sort of this, slightly futuristic, cyberpunky kind of vibe. I mean, if you ever wanted to play like a tabletop game that was like similar to playing something like Cyberpunk 2077, you would probably pick up Shadowrun. And there were a handful of games that were released with the same engine with like some different stories. Shadowrun Dragonfall, one of them. All of these were considered to be very good. They didn't get a massive amount of hype. So even I think if you look back in 2014, I think the hotness wouldn't have been that high up there. And yeah, the importance sort of fell off because it didn't get a lot of attention. But super high quality game, very playable, very fun, strong RPG mechanics, abso-freaking-lutely. Microsoft Flight Simulator, only at a 64. My gosh. I've played a lot of flight simulators over the course of my life, including way back. I think I started on Microsoft Flight Simulator 3, way back in the day. Microsoft Flight Simulator, when it came out in 2020, was astounding. Visually a masterpiece, but the big thing is the fact that the entire world is present and available in surprisingly high quality resolution. And the reason for it is that you can stream the train information live from the internet. If you are playing offline right out of the box, then you do have access to a fairly low quality version of the world. But if you are online, it will download as you play a super high quality representation of the world. They used satellite imagery followed by AI processing to place buildings in a shockingly accurate way. The world feels really strong. And then there have been, I think at this point, maybe a dozen, maybe slightly more world updates is what they called, where they handcraft some parts of the world to give it some really loving attention. Unbelievable amounts of great content included in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I mean, there's simply no comparison in the Flight Simulator era. I mean, okay, if you want combat flight sim, then you're looking at something like DCS. Sure, fine, fair. But for civilians flight, which is what I'm into, they really did an excellent job on this. It could have been something they could have easily botched something on. To me, in my opinion, they did a perfect job building the flight simulator. I've played a lot of the other ones, X-Plane and Prepared 3D, which is really sort of a Microsoft. Anyway, but MSFS 2020 did a really good job, and they're looking to do a version drop, I think, next year as well with some tweaks and things, which will be interesting to see how that works, and if it does feel like an upgrade and not a cash grab, so it will be quite interesting to see that. Deus Ex coming in at 63, stupendous. So this is the 2000 version. This is the OG version. Graphically, would certainly look a little bit rough these days, right? Mostly, the issue being that character models have like 3 polygons assigned to them. Okay, it's not quite that bad. Gameplay wise, story wise, still super tight. To me, like super playable. It's got a lower playability function over here, I think, just because of some like managing inventory, different UI conventions, different things like that they're not going to be quite as smooth as modern day games. But you can see the importance value over here. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't at least tried playing the OG Deus Ex, and I really think it holds up. A couple hours in, you won't even notice the pixels anymore. Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I'm always ashamed that I never finished Morrowind. What a great game. Very crunchy. Yeah, playability is not going to be very high on this. Very crunchy game in the Elder Scrolls series. But and then you really had to be immersed and think. You didn't get your quest markers. Combat worked very differently. But really wonderful entry. Nice to see it here at 62. I suspect we'll see the other some other Elder Scrolls series on this list, because I think it's fair to say that like Oblivion and Skyrim are different enough that they would warrant their own entries. In particular, I would have a hard time believing that Skyrim wasn't on this list, much higher up. The Case of the Golden Idol. No idea what this is, actually. Came out last year. Haven't heard about it before. It's like solving a murder in a room full of From Software characters. Half the time, you're just trying not to be deceived by its eccentric characters and characteristic art style. Characteristic. Strange and brilliant little game. I have not heard of this. I'm going to have to check this out. Prey 2017. I haven't played it. Keep hearing great things about this, though. Prey breaks my heart. Brilliant immersive sim, direct evolution of System Shock, game they built upon. Good at anything Arcane has done, and it bombed. Always a shame when that happens. Always a shame. Apex Legends. Haven't played it, but I know it's quite good, and lots of people love it. The Sims 4. I mean, here's the thing. The Sims is one of those things that does tend to divide the gaming community for a variety of reasons. Maybe, people have gatekeeping of what gamers are. Certainly there's some, gender bias issues and things going on in there that keeps getting poo-pooed. The fact of the matter is the Sims franchise as a whole is a masterpiece of ambition. And I am one of these people that have played not only every release of The Sims, but I'm one of these dumb idiots that buys every single expansion. Not all the stuff packs and things like that, but every expansion to every Sims game. Not just for me. No. In this household, both Essentia and A Kiss for Luck, we all play all the time, and we all have our own copies. And for what it does, there's simply no beating it. Maybe that'll change with Life by You. I think the scope of Life by You is going to be different. I think there's going to be some things it does that The Sims can't even touch, and there's going to be some things that The Sims continues to excel by, but I'm very excited by it because I love this sort of genre. I argue that The Sims is one of the best role-playing games out there. If you think about role-playing games in a certain concept, a certain aspect, I think it's good. It is EA. The expansions and things are ridiculously expensive. Was Sims 3 better than Sims 4? All these debates are certainly valid, but there's no denying the importance of the Sims as a whole. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds, not to be confused with Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds is a really mind-warpy kind of puzzle game. Absolutely beautiful. Not very expensive, not very long to play through, but one of those things that will sort of change your life after you've played it. Thief the Dark Project from 1998 here. The OG, I think, this one here specifically. Stealth game, so obviously I'm terrible at it. Very high importance. Did create an entirely new genre of gameplay that wasn't just first-person pew-pew shooty-shooty. Yeah. Deep Rock Galactic, so much fun to play. It's fine by yourself, but obviously excels if you get a 4-player crew on here. I mean, it's your Left 4 Dead, except you're playing dwarves who are mining and then having to blast space bugs that are trying to stop you from mining out your rocks. Each little mission in the Deep Rock Galactic is fairly short. I mean, 15 minutes to maybe a half hour, and then you're back home and upgrading your gear, changing your cosmetics, and just having a grand old time. Still constantly getting updates, all of them for free. Really great company behind this is what it feels like. Lots of love going into Deep Rock Galactic all the time. One of the best communities as well if you're trying to get into it. Cannot overstate how much Deep Rock Galactic is a fantastic game. There we go. We got Skyrim coming in at 54. No one needs to know anything about Skyrim. It's insane. Yeah, it's Bethesda. Yeah, it's got some glitches, which at this point we've got a bajillion mods that help continue to make it great. I mean, it made a huge impact right when it came out, and it continues to be one of the great games to play today thanks to its amazing modding community. Arguably, did the success of Skyrim lead to Starfield maybe having a certain amount of laziness in its quality and writing and content because they could just ride that train, and it worked. Bethesda, it worked for them. They still sold a bajillion copies of Starfield. Does it deserve as much as it got? I don't know, but it was there, and I've played it, and it's fun and frustrating all at the same time. I suspect there'll be a billion mods for Starfield as well. It'll probably be greater in 10 years than it is now, and tons of people will still be playing it. Chivalry 2. All right, Chivalry were fun little combat games in a medieval setting. I haven't thought about this in a while. Well, actually, I guess I haven't thought of Chivalry for a while. I forgot that Chivalry 2 came out a couple of years ago, which tells you how much kind of I was thinking about it as a whole. These are great little games. Yeah. Interesting to see how high it is rated, but yeah, wow. Total War 3 Kingdoms, I mean, I wouldn't surprise me if we saw maybe more than one Total War game on this point. Although, arguably, I would say, is there a huge difference from one Total War game to another? I don't know. And, Total War series is one of those games, I've talked about it before. It is the best games that I don't play. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm more into the management game of empire building than the real-time combat side of things. And I've said before, if I want to play real-time combat, usually I just end up immersing myself in some StarCraft 2 or something like that. But there's no denying that it's freaking fantastic. Just for some reason never clicks for me. Hey, City Skylines coming in at 51. And right around the corner, we've got the release of City Skylines 2 not too far away, which is really, really exciting. A city builder that dethroned SimCity, something that I don't think anyone thought would ever happen. And yet, from the very day it released, it was a huge, huge success. Part of it, of course, has become SimCity 5 or whatever you want to call the SimCity with no number that was kind of a huge disaster. It was such a huge disaster, so there was a huge gap in the market, and City Skylines fell right into it. I mean, their marketing when they announced was, they highlighted the fact that there was no multiplayer. That was actually listed as a feature for the game because of how badly it worked in the latest iteration of SimCity. I've put so many hours into this, so have many people. Tons of great modding for the City Skylines games as well, and really hyped for City Skylines 2. Hope it bumps up the visual and the gameplay, and very eager to dive into that. Vampire Survivors, love this game so much. I mean, it costs virtually nothing to buy. I think it's like under $5, I think, and just a wonderful arcadey game with short sessions, lots of replayability, that sort of roguelite mechanic where you are unlocking things between game sessions, tons and tons and tons and tons of fun. Yeah, they're $3 coffee. Maybe that's the price. Maybe I'm thinking about $5 Canadian and about maybe it's $3 American. I don't know what the price of this is, and sometimes it comes up on sale as well. Just ridiculously good value for money. There we go. We got ourselves another Total War game. The Warhammer series. What I love about the Warhammer series of Total War is the fact that you can stitch all the campaigns together from the Warhammer 1, 2, and 3, right, into one huge mega campaign. Pretty strong. Love Warhammer universe. It's excellent fun as well. Great lore behind it. And I think the Total War engine is one of the best ways to experience the Warhammer series. There's no doubt about it. It works really well. Dishonored 2. I have not played the Dishonored series. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. Yeah, baby. So talking about games that it's... I would argue that this quality rating is not deserved. I would argue that. I'd argue a little bit higher in playability, a little higher in importance. I'm surprised the hotness level is so high, considering this came out, in 2004. It's weird. Like, I would poo-poo some of these things, like the quality, and yet I might rank it higher. It is an excellent, excellent role-playing game in the World of Darkness universe, which is a wonderful tabletop system that I've enjoyed for years and years and years. I've met my wife LARPing Vampire the Masquerade. I am super into it. But the thing is, even if I wasn't someone who is a fan of the franchise this much, this game here is stupendous. It is wonderful. You do want to make sure that you install the fan patch if you're going to run it, just to fix some bugs, help with some of the graphic issues, and also, depending on how you set things up, unlock some additional content, some unfinished things that weren't available at release, but that were still in there, that were made live. Really stupendous game. And it's one of those games that gets joked about when someone mentions Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, someone has to go and reinstall it and play through it once again. System Shock, the remake in 2023. I have not played the System Shock games. I really have to, and this is just another reminder that I have to do that. Half-Life Alyx, so highly rated, considering the fact that it's a VR game, so a lot of people never got around to playing it, myself included. I really, really, really want to. How important can a game be if most gamers don't have a VR setup to be? But all I've heard is stupendously good things from Half-Life Alyx. Pillars of Eternity 2 Teadfire. So Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2 are both games that sometimes lead to confusion as to what PoE stands for. Of course, for a lot of people, that's Path of Exile, but in some contexts, that is Pillars of Eternity. So computer role-playing game similar to the Baldur's Gate franchise, all those sorts of things, but it's with its own rule set. They are really wonderful. I haven't actually spent a lot of time in Poe 2. I still never finished Poe 1, which I hate that I haven't, but I did always feel like it sort of dragged on a little for me. It was a little too grim, a little too serious to, I think, keep pushing me forward. One of the things I like about the Baldur's Gate franchise, both 1 and 2, and now with 3, is there's just the right amount of levity injected in the right way that kept me going. But there's no denying that I would rank this game as super, super high, despite the fact that I've never gone around to finishing either of the 2 Pillars of Eternity games. I do think they're absolutely stupendous. Nier Automata, I've never played, but the character is iconic. I've seen this character all over the place. I have no idea who they are or what their deal is. Doom 1993, the OG. I've spent so much time playing this. I've spent so much time playing this with a friend, hooking up our modem and then having our games ruined because one of our moms picked up the phone. You know, the importance, yeah. It's hard to overestimate the importance of Doom. It wasn't even a true 3D game. It was a false 3D, but such an incredible amount of fun. Really, really, really tight gameplay. There's a reason they put it on everything. Yep, absolutely. StarCraft 2. Okay. I still absolutely adore StarCraft 2. I feel that Blizzard has done the StarCraft 2 competitive scene a disservice. I love that the competitive scene for StarCraft 1 and 2 both still very much exist. I mean, a lot of it is in Korea, but a lot of gaming, big gaming events all over the world still have StarCraft tournaments. I think there is no better example of real-time combat for multiplayer. I think the skill ceiling is incredibly high. There's always ways to improve in this game. StarCraft 2 has a lot of free stuff available right now. If you just grab Battle.net and you can install the free version of StarCraft 2, I think you can play through the entire original campaign. I think you can go into multiplayer. I also really, really like the co-op commander mode. This is still a game that I load up all the time. I've gone through all 3 of the major campaigns 3 or 4 times each, I think. Really, really enjoy StarCraft 2. Dave the Diver. Excellent game. I did eventually lose interest in it because I think the gameplay kept getting bigger and bigger, which to me is actually that's a plus to a game, right? The gameplay getting bigger and bigger, but I like the original gameplay at the start, the really short little loops of gathering some fish, running a sushi restaurant. I didn't realize there would be this huge, expansive story and massive extra features and mechanics and things like that. The game just turned out to be bigger than I'd planned for our little YouTube series, but really a tremendous game, very deserving of being so high on the list. Number 40, think about all the games that Dave the Diver beat. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that's very, very, very justified. Quirky little sim about fishing and running a restaurant is what it starts. But yeah, and then it explodes into something huge. Team Fortress 2. Everyone knows Team Fortress 2. I played the OG Team Fortress when it was like a mod for like Quake or something like that. It was fun then. And then TF2 continues to just be an outstanding thing. Hasn't gotten a lot of love and attention from Valve in some time, which the TF2 subreddits are never that happy about. And yet, people don't stop playing it, and why would you? The gameplay is just so perfectly tight. Titanfall 2, I actually never played the Titanfall games, which is a shame considering how much I like big mech combat. Love to see it on the list. Frostpunk, post-apocalyptically frosty city building survival game. Really gorgeous, beautiful. I'm not going to say it's got a massive amount of replayability, which is the reason I'm not still playing it today, but I absolutely adored playing through this. Definitely warrants a very, very high score. Halo, the Master Chief Collection. Played through some of Halo, not that much. I was going to say the importance is going to be very high on this, and yeah, lots of quality put in. Some part of me is always going to be bitter because originally, Halo was originally going to be a Mac game way back in the day. And when I was a Mac gamer, Mac owner at the time, then Microsoft bought out the company, and something, the Xbox happened. So maybe there's always a little saltiness there for me. Return of the Obra Dinn. I have not played it. I really, really have to get around to doing this. Brilliant mystery game about using a magic stopwatch to solve the death and disappearance of crew of sailors. Love it. Hey, Stellaris. There's a thing game we've played a lot on the channel. I love all kinds of 4X games. I love them, especially maybe when they're in space. I love Master of Orion, for example. Stellaris, the playability being very high makes perfect sense. Everything is quite high on this. It brought Space 4X to a whole new level. It really expanded on the exploration level, which I love, right? You get that sense of like that sort of Star Trek-y kind of vibe of exploring the unknown darkness. You've got the ability to customize your race, so there's so much replayability. I mean, you guys don't need to sell. You don't need me to sell you on Stellaris. I mean, if you're on this channel, you're probably huge fans of it. Well deserving to be on the list. The top third over here, or nearly so. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. I've never played any of the Metal Gear Solid games. I have watched people play them. They are here. Yeah. Excellent. Wielder Myth. Okay, I've dabbled in this, and this is actually something that I kind of regret not having played more in. A really interesting, like, computer RPG that runs a little bit differently. With some roguelike kind of elements. I don't know if that would be the right way to describe it. I've played it. I don't know if there's a video on my channel because I think it was originally live streamed. Whether or not it made it on YouTube, I'm not sure. It is a game that I deeply, deeply regret not having spent more time in, and I'm going to have to revisit at some point. But yeah, door watch my party members grow and change over the course of the campaign, especially the ones turned into were-ravens. Yakuza 0. I've heard the biggest complaint I've seen about Yakuza 0 is people who played this first were then like ruined for the rest of the franchise because it was so good. So it's like, maybe don't start with 0. Maybe start with one of the other ones, because once you've played 0, you can't go back. I've not played any of the Yakuza games. I keep seeing so many things about them that impresses me about the genre, though. Would love to give it a try. I haven't played the Monster Hunter series either. Damn, so many good games. Planescape Torment. So, Planescape Torment. I obviously am a fan of the OG Baldur's Gate games. Planescape Torment is in the same Infinity engine, often referred to as being like the strongest story of any of those games back then. It is to my great shame that despite my love for Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and for Icewind Dale and for Neverwinter Nights and all these games, I have never played Planescape Torment. One day we will, and it'll probably be YouTubed or live streamed. KSP, the Kerbal Space Program. How sad is it that the number of people playing KSP 1 has dropped down ever since KSP 2 was released? KSP 2, so heartbroken by that release that it's actually like retroactively gone and made KSP 1 feel worse. I think people are just so heartbroken about it. I will be going back to KSP 1. I mean, out of the box, a fantastic game. The modding community for this rivals what you get out of something like Skyrim. Just absolutely wonderful. God, I mean, we've spent so many hours in KSP. None of you need to hear about that. Hunt Showdown, I know nothing about. It's rated 27 on this list. It must be pretty darn good. Oh, so multiplayer FPS. That's why I didn't play it. Yeah, multiplayer FPS, not really my thing. Hitman franchise. I did play the original Hyman. They spell it right there. Yeah, Hyman. I have played the original Hitman. So like puzzle stealth shooter game, really strong. Obviously, I don't do well at stealth, but I mean, hard to argue with that. There's another Fallout. Fallout New Vegas. So we've seen Fallout 2, and now Fallout New Vegas. I wonder if they only put those two. I wonder if they chose one of the OGs. So they argue that Fallout 2 was a superior game to Fallout 1. So of the OG sort of two-dimensional games, we're going to do that. And then maybe of the 3D Fallouts, they only included Fallout New Vegas as the best example, which is possible. I have to say, as much I have poo-pooed Fallout 4 a large number of times, but there's no denying that the gameplay of Fallout 4 is really, really tight. The gunplay, excellent, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of people. Everyone drinks the Kool-Aid that Fallout New Vegas is the best. And it does have a huge number of factions and branching stuff and options and a really cool world. There's a part of me that does appreciate the tight story, what I consider to be the tighter story of Fallout 3, which like a much more clearer route. You've got a specific goal that you're hunting down with like great incentive. You've got to try to find your father, who at the same time is trying to save the wasteland, right? In Fallout New Vegas, it's just, well, I guess you kind of have a grudge about a guy who shot you, and there's something about some sort of like chip, like a poker chip. And to me, it's like a softer sort of like initial thread to pull. But the world of Fallout New Vegas is excellent, excellent, excellent. The way the weapons were handled in this game, which were basically kind of inspired by a mod for Fallout 3, were just great. The modding community for this is great as well. The base game is still good, but I would have a hard time playing it without some mods to make the visuals better and to like even increase some of the gameplay complexity a lot. Yeah, Fallout New Vegas is a game I've played through a couple of times and probably will play through a few times more. Into the Breach. So I've dabbled this excellent, a really interesting turn-based strategy game. I'm surprised to see it this high up in the list. I don't know how many people have played about it. Yeah, it's easy to forget. It launched, was incredible, played to death, faded from our minds. Yeah, I didn't play a tremendous amount. I was like one of those things where I'm like, well, this is really good. I'm really surprised it's so highly rated. Not to crap on it. It's really good, but I am surprised. Elden Ring. I have not played it. I'm not very good at these FromSoft aware games, but man, I know it's good. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. So it is another one of these things, one of my great shames that I have not played this series, the KOTOR series. I have not played it, which is crazy, given my love for all things, well, I like Star Wars stuff, certainly, but all these CRPGs, and I know that this is supposed to be a stupendous example of it. It's just one of those things that I just never got around to it, Gotta visit KOTOR. Gotta play those BioWare games. Resident Evil 4, I think I dabbled with one of the Resident Evils at some point, but I haven't played them very much. And part of it is because some of these are, in my opinion, were more they were more originally like console releases, weren't they? And so I didn't get the same attention, of course, and they're not strategy games. They're not simulation games. So I never play them as much attention, but they are on my list of things that I would like to play to complete my gamerness. Final Fantasy XIV makes an appearance over here. The MMO, the development of Final Fantasy XIV was interesting because didn't it release and it was sort of kind of disastrous, and the devs were like, you know what, you're right. We're going to shut it down, re-release it, and in fact, even like make that canonical. Like the dramatic changes to the game and the world and all those things. Then they make that part of the lore for Final Fantasy XIV. Like a very gutsy move. And there are more than a few members of my community that play this nonstop. I have tried to dabble with it. It didn't stick for me just because the sort of things I look for in a game where you're creating your character in terms of the mechanics of it and the flexibility weren't kind of there for me. I don't really have time for an MMO currently, but I would kind of like to revisit it at some point if I can. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So I think in the notes here, they're talking about mostly grouping some of this stuff together for Mass Effect. I think they're including, I think this Mass Effect Legendary Edition, well, yeah, you can see Miranda over here. So maybe it's kind of including 1, 2, and 3 together. But again, they've talked about before when they've got a franchise with multiple steps, we're just maybe going to go and list it one time. Because honestly, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 could all legitimately be on this list very easily. I think there's something absolutely special about the story of the original Mass Effect that could never be equaled by its sequels. It's that discovery thing. It's just like I always compare it to the Matrix movie. I knew that the Matrix sequels would never, ever come up to the original because there's that magic of discovery. There's a magic of discovery of the first Mass Effect when you're learning about the Reapers, when you're learning about the Mass Effect relays, when you're, all these things that you can't duplicate. And yet, the gameplay just kept getting tighter and tighter. Mass Effect 2 arguably had much better gameplay than 1, and 3 had even much better gameplay than that. The ending thing, I don't know, I never understood the drama over the endings. Partly is because I didn't play Mass Effect 3 until they came out with the Enhanced Edition, which added some more things. But also, I've played many stupendously good RPGs that in the end, really the conclusion was just, a few different possible ways that you could venture it. I don't know, I can't think of an example of a game that had a truly varied ending. I love Dragon Age Origin, but in the end of it, it kind of just ends in one way with a couple of different quirks. And then you get kind of an epilogue that tells you the side effects of extra secondary choices you've made. So I don't know. I never understood the problem people had with the ending of Mass Effect 3, but some people do and think that it was, a very major drop. But in any case, there's no denying that the Mass Effect trilogy was wonderful, and I think we were all kind of disappointed by Andromeda, which wasn't necessarily a bad game, but it definitely didn't feel like Mass Effect. It'll be interesting to see what the next game comes out. Okay, Penitent Pentant is another game that I feel terrible that I have never played. A lot of people are probably going to see it here at number 18 and be like, what the hell is this? And still, yeah. 16th century murder mystery, but it's actually a meditation on how we live with the past. Like, what? How? huh? And a lot of people have played this, said this is one of their favorite games they've ever played ever. So well deserved at number 18. And again, a shame that I have not personally played it. I've never played any of the Persona games. So there you are. Portal 2. Interesting that Portal 2 is highlighted rather than Portal 1. There's no denying that Portal 2 is a bigger and more involved game with like much better graphics, a much more significant story, all those things. But there is that magic of the original Portal, right? It's the same thing as Mass Effect, it's the same thing as the Matrix movie, right? That magic of the first Portal game where you're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on in a game that just appears to be a simple puzzle game. But Portal 2, I'm assuming only Portal 2 is on this list because they're the franchise sort of grouping that they're doing. Much bigger game. The co-op mode means you're getting 2 games in one. So many great stories. The original Portal arguably more influential. Yeah, absolutely. But Portal 2 adds co-op and significantly expands things. And it's fair. It's fair. It's one of those things where it's like Portal 2 is probably the technically better game, but Portal 1 might be the more important one. And I mean, obviously, you're going to play them. You should play them in order. And so you experience the whole of it. Minecraft coming in at 15. What are we going to say about Minecraft? RimWorld coming in at 14 makes me so freaking happy. What a stupendous game. One of my favorites. Well deserved in this slot. The base game is excellent. The expansions are a testament to how you make great expansions. And the modding community for this, it makes the Skyrim community look insignificant. Really tremendously wonderful game that can be played in a huge variety of ways, from low difficulty, just enjoying base building, to high difficulty, having to try to survive through every single day in the game. Just 10 out of 10 for me. Baldur's Gate 2. I'm so happy that we see this show up on the list. I suspect that Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 were combined for this particular thing, and fair enough. In fact, arguably, there's, the Balespawn saga, which is Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and the expansions, is sort of, you could be considered one single truly epic game. I think even with Baldur's Gate 3 having come out, first of all, they would be 2 separate things. If they make this list next year, I suspect Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 would be combined in one entry, and Baldur's Gate 3 would be a separate entry, because they do stand out as, I mean, they're from different eras. They work very differently. Visually, the rule set, everything about them are significantly different. And yet, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, absolutely stupendous, epic games. The only thing holding it back is a little hotness because it came out 23 years ago. And this is Baldur's Gate 2. It was a year and a half. Did Baldur's Gate 1 come out in 99 or 98? Maybe it was 98 and then 99 for the expansion. And then Baldur's Gate 2 was 2000, 2001 for their expansions. Something like that. I mean, come on. Hades, I know nothing about, but here it is at number 12. I gotta play this bad boy. How do you take the sting out of dying in a roguelike? Make every death a gift. What? Gotta play this. Stardew Valley to 11. God, what a great game. And another one that keeps getting a lot of love and attention. Lots of patches that change and advance the gameplay. Really nice to see that. XCOM 2. Again, I suspect that the XCOMs have been merged over here. And in fairness, I think you could even go back and merge the OG XCOMs into this, because it's not like the gameplay is that significantly different from the OG stuff to here. Every turn-based tactical combat game gets compared to XCOM. It gets referred to as an XCOM-like, and there's a reason for that. Divinity Original Sin 2. So, until BG3 came out, Divinity Original Sin 2 is what most people thought of when we're talking about Larian Studios. This is the same engine, effectively, that Baldur's Gate 3 runs in, and a lot of the mechanics are going to be very similar. Different rule set. Baldur's Gate 3, of course, uses the Dungeon Dragon 5th edition rule set. Divinity Original Sin 2 uses their own rule set, although it works very well. A great cast of characters, a good story. It does arguably maybe fall off a little in the later act, and I think the sort of later kind of enhanced edition release of Divinity Original Sin did extend the endgame. The OG game, Divinity Original Sin 1, I think was a 2-player thing. Original Sin 2 is a 4-player thing. I played through this whole thing multiplayer with friends, had an absolute blast, a great time, well deserving of a top 10 spot. Although I do think that it's probable that the PC gamer people do seem to love maybe CRPGs, well, I guess as much as I do. So I'm maybe surprised to see it this high up, but at the same time, I do think it really, really deserves it. I think Divinity Original Sin 2 looks a lot worse now since the release of Baldur's Gate 3, because Baldur's Gate 3 is in some ways just a much, much, much better version than DOS 2, even though this is still a stupendously good game. Counter-Strike Global Offensive Me and my shaky hands and terrible reflexes cannot play this game, but I love to watch it when it comes to esports. And this number 2 just came out, right? And I know there's a little bit of a drama llama about that, but and something about hitbox and things. We'll see how it goes. Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, people still haven't stopped talking about this game, and especially like yeah, it came out pre-COVID, but for a lot of people, this was the game that got them through lockdown for COVID. And you know what? It's slow enough pace that that kind of makes a lot of sense. Street Fighter 6. I mean, I guess this is just representative of the Street Fighter franchise as a whole. It is probably the fighting game I did spend the most amount of time in. For me, it was on the Super Nintendo with Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but lovely franchise. Half-Life 2. I mean, I don't think that we'll ever see a universe where someone makes a competent listing of best video games of all time that doesn't have Half-Life 2 in the top 10 somewhere there. And yeah, specifically, I mean, Half-Life, again, was revolutionary. Well, in a way it wasn't, but in a way it was. Like, it really, it was arguably Half-Life 1 was the first one that first person shooter that wasn't just all about just blood and guts and gore and actually tried to have a story. And then Half-Life 2 is just, I mean, this is peak Valve, right? Just wonderful content. Still kind of waiting for Half-Life 3. Valve, you left us off on a little cliffhanger for episode 3, I'm just saying. But I'm sure it'll come one day, probably, maybe. Dwarf Fortress. This is really the reason I decided to make this video. It's because Dwarf Fortress is in top 4 in the list of top 100 games, arguably of all times, by PC Gamer. They drop Dwarf Fortress here in 4th spot and give it a playability rating 6.57, which, I mean, I love Dwarf Fortress, and it is definitely the most epic game ever made. Such a grandiose thing. Originally, yeah, released in 2006, but the big thing about it is the Steam release that just came out this year that brought, you know, more visual and user interface quality. Still a very archaic game to play, but definitely been brought up to a higher level. And so many people have never seen it, never played it. I mean, I don't have to talk about it. You guys are on my channel. You know what we're talking about here, but god damn. Yeah, I like this. CK3 is an incredible story generator, but let's be honest, and it and everything else pales in comparison to Dwarf Fortress. Yep, couple of brothers, their ludicrously complex mayhem engine. Absolutely. And then at 3, we do get CK3. Yeah, 100% deserving it. Crusader Kings 2 was incredible, was really strong, and I think CK3 was just Crusader Kings 2 and more so. Yeah, we lost a couple of features. We gained a lot of features, a lot of quality of life stuff. The ability to tell stories, the fact that like non-complex strategy gamers got into playing this game. And it's not like it's not a complex game. CK3 is a complex game, but you can sort of choose at what level of complexity you're interacting with it, which I think is one of the big things of success. You can drill down, you can min-max so many things. You can be super gamery, or you can be all about the experience, all about the story, all about the characters. And it works on all those levels all at the same time. Absolutely. Number 2, we got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Again, one of those games I really have not explored the Witcher series, and I really wish I had, and hopefully at some point I will, but I don't think there's any denying. People talk about the quality of Witcher 3 time and time again, so no questions why it would show up over there. And then number 1, Disco Elysium, which I will play. I haven't, but I will play, although I know there's some drama llama with like, because the owners of the company may have stolen the company from the actual people who created it. It was a whole thing, whatever. I need to play this game. By all accounts, a wonderful role-playing game in the purest sense of the role and the story and all those things. I really have to play this game. God, I really have to play it. But there you go. 1, Disco Elysium, 2, Witcher 3, 3, Crusader Kings 3, 4, we got Dwarf Fortress, 5, Half-Life 2. Street Fighter series, that's so interesting. I love how transparent they were about their ranking service for this. Yeah. God, Dwarf Fortress number 4. It makes me so happy. I can't even tell you. And that's why I made this video. Dwarf Fortress number 4 hopefully gets even more attention. So well deserved. So well deserved. Thanks a lot for watching this video, folks. If you're new to the channel, of course, subscribe. And in general, liking and commenting and all those things does make a huge difference. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.